Ryuku Sensei is at it again. He's making a hit piece on what I hate about Wuthering Waves. This sucks. So let's go ahead because there's a lot of discussion going on right now about this game and the direction where it's headed. And I definitely want to see and catch up, see exactly like where that discussion is going. So let's take a look at his opinion.
So, I just ripped into Honkai Star Rail. You thought Wuthering Waves was gonna get a pass? Wrong. Oh yeah, this guy's gonna be hard on Wuthering Waves. Have you seen his channel? He's a total Kuro bot. You guys clearly don't know me. Time to burn my bridge with Kuro, I guess. So let's get into it. So just how much of a Kuro
I like the song.
Well, I've been playing since launch and I have 2 accounts. One at Union level 75 and the other at level 74. With both accounts combined, I have every limited weapon and character. What about Ling Yang? Oh, excuse me, sorry, my mistake.
Expert.
I meant every character that matters. Even before launch, I was really looking forward to exploring this post-apocalyptic wasteland. It set itself apart from the other open-world action RPGs that were out there or that had been announced. I was excited to see a more mature take on the genre. A gritty world battling against monsters that could take you out at any moment if you weren't careful. I was particularly happy with the variety of characters, both male and female. They were incredibly well designed, and I was glad to see how many badass-looking men there were too. They were so cool. I wanted to play all of them. Well, almost all of them. I'll stop bullying him now, I promise. My problems with Wuthering Waves started from the very beginning, like practically the first line I heard in English from Yang Yang.
Are you alright? Do you feel any discomfort?
Okay, so I know I'm not the first person to complain about this, and I doubt I'll be the last. But seriously, did the VA have absolutely no direction in her voice acting? Listening back to it, she sounds like an alien pretending to...
That's like their biggest challenge. I remember watching the interview that Glaive did, or saw the tweet with, I don't know exactly, but the director and some other publication. And he was saying the biggest challenge of Wuthering Waves is localization. The biggest challenge for them is localization and getting sort of the right people working on it to localize it properly and bring it over to other languages correctly, right? In the way that it's meant to. And I 100% believe that that could be the case because it's hard to find good people. It's hard to find good people, and it's infinitely harder when you don't speak the language. And people underestimate it, the amount of resources you would need to guarantee or have a good chance of your localization being good. It's a crapshoot. It's a total crapshoot if you don't have those resources.
To be human.
Please, Commander, you are our last hope.
Not only that, it was very clear that she was struggling with her voice lines, particularly to do with the names of things.
This is the statue of Jue, the sentinel in Zhengzhou, in the shape of a long.
One particular word she said sounded the same.
Huang Long, Huang Long, Huang Long, Huang Long.
I was sure they used the exact same clip and just forcibly inserted it after the fact. I actually compared the waveforms, and even though they did sound very similar, they weren't in fact the same. So I guess she just naturally sounds like a robot.
We are in the gorgeous spirits. It's on the outskirts of Zhengzhou, Huang Long.
These...
It does kind of sound like they like inserted Huang Long into her lines.
Odd line reads felt unnatural, like she was going to say something more.
Yeah.
Like that. Didn't sound natural, did it? I heard that they redid some of these early...
Inflection is super, super important.
...lines, but at the time of recording this video, she still sounded as unnatural as on launch day. Changing to Japanese quickly solved that problem, so it wasn't too much of a problem for me, though to be honest, I can't entirely blame her. A lot of the names in this game are difficult for anyone not familiar in the Chinese language to pronounce.
True.
And even in Japanese, the kanji being used for the names is somewhat obscure. So without furigana,
Wait, they do that? Why? It's so hard. And they don't even have like the furigana at top? That's so hard. It's so difficult.
So without furigana, Japanese players had absolutely...
Because like, I guess, I don't know.
Japanese, the kanji being used for the names is somewhat obscure. So
some person might look at this and be like, well, doesn't the Japanese, don't they know how to pronounce these kanjis? Don't they know like how this name would be vocalized or spelled? And the answer is no. Because kanji have multiple different readings. And for names especially, they're very selective. They're very, very selective of like which ones are the ones for that name. And it depends entirely on the name and what whoever named them, what they think sounds good. So like just looking at this kanji, you have no idea. You can make guesses, educated guesses, but you have no idea how this name is supposed to sound. You have no idea.
So without furigana, Japanese players had absolutely no idea how to read certain names.
Especially if it's obscure kanji. And like there are like much more Chinese based kanji that just are not used in everyday conversation. Kanji is actually like a really hard selling point, I guess, for Japanese language to native Japanese speakers too. A lot of there's like a sort of recent observation made of the modern Japanese society that a lot of the literacy regarding kanji is diminishing and it's just not up there. And especially when you have more obscure words, obscure kanji, it's super hard. They cannot make a guess as to how it sounds just by like the shapes or the radicals that are being used. You literally just have to know. You just have to know and you have to be able to look it up.
Even the name of the game itself went misread for a long time as Narushio, and I think that's what frustrated a lot of the new
Wait, it's not Narushio?
players. It's not so much that there was too much new jargon in general, but a lot of the new stuff which wasn't jargon sounded like jargon because they were putting everything through this Chinese nomenclature. I never really had that issue with the opening acts, so I took a look into to see what was being said. Tacit Discord, monster. Tacit Field, monster area. Tacit Mark, black thing on your skin. Etheric Sea, thing up in the sky. Wave 1 phenomena. Yeah, okay, this one was a bit of a miss. Retroact Rain wasn't important at the time, but got explained in detail later. Sonorosphere, portal.
I feel like Retroact Rain is such a Retroact Rain is just like reverse rain, and it doesn't mean anything or do anything except it's a bad omen. Like shit's bad here, guys. That's about it.
Trinodian, big bad boss monster. So putting aside the Chinese names, there was a total of about 10 pieces of new jargon that we had to learn, and a lot of it was kind of self-explanatory. But I definitely understand those who were trying to follow and memorize all the new names of everything and were getting confused. I get it, I really do. You're not wrong for feeling that way, I just personally didn't have that particular issue. Anyway.
Oh, so he's saying that in Japanese, the way they vocalized or like use these jargon, they just use very, very general words. Like for Tacit Discord, instead of coming up with a weird Japanese word for it, or maybe a westernized version of it, like loan words. Using loan words, they just said like monster, right? Instead. Which totally makes... It's kind of crazy how different that is. It's very generic. And it's a lot easier for a Japanese audience to kind of grasp.
Tacit Mark, black thing on your skin. Etheric Sea, big bad boss monster. So putting aside the Chinese names, there was a total of about 10 pieces of new jargon that we had to learn, and a lot of it was kind of self-explanatory. But I definitely understand those who were trying to follow and memorize all the new names of everything and were getting confused. I get it, I really do. You're not...
It was dumb. Like, that was such a huge localization miss, for sure. And I don't think they should have went the other way, the total opposite extreme of like just using very easy words like the Japanese apparently did. But definitely like the way they were trying to be too literal. And that is the reason why localization is very, very important. Okay? People always say, just give us the literal translations. Just give us the literal translations. And the reality is, literal translations are kind of bad. Or they're absolutely the most dog shit. And if it's like, there's a spectrum. And the closer you go to literal, in some cases like this one, can be really confusing.
Not wrong for feeling that way, I just personally didn't have that particular issue. Anyway, we continue through the story, meet Baija, Wood, and I liked how he eased the player into the combat. And if there's one thing that Wuthering Waves does really well, it's the combat. I still remember my first time fighting Crownless feeling like an absolute badass, pulling off all those dodges, counters, and perfect parries. And when the second phase starts, the amazing guitar riff comes in and you're pulling off these really clean cinematic finishing moves. Oh, it just felt so good. Whatever happened to those? We never do this ever again when fighting Crownless or any boss monsters. It would have been really cool to have a particular finishing move for each boss depending on if certain conditions were met. I'm sure it would have been difficult to animate
I don't agree with that. So Ryuku is saying that he's thinking it'd be really cool if each boss had like specific finishing moves that you ran into from the story, like this one, right? Basically a QTE to, I guess, for farming. I don't agree with that at all. These QTEs should not be in the farming stages or weeklies. At least for MSQ, I kind of agree. Sure, okay, MSQ, sure. But because if it's cinematic and it's like one time, but for farmings, no. Like for like weeklies, no.
cool to have a particular finishing move for each boss depending on if certain conditions were met. I'm sure it would have been difficult to animate finishers for each character, but honestly, I would have been fine if it was just for the MC alone. A little something to make them special. They are the MC after all. Then we continue on to what I think is the weakest part of 1.0, the fucking treasure hunt. So we meet Sanhua.
Yes, fuck this dumbass fucking like segment. This segment was retarded, dude, because the treasure hunt was meant to be a test for Rover, right? Rover was supposed to be able to, I guess, I don't even really know what they were testing for, but collect these different treasures and kind of bring them and demonstrate or understand the worth of these treasures to maybe Sanhua or something in order to meet Jinshi. And it's not engaging writing at all, because these treasures have like cultural significance in a world that we don't know jack shit about. It was just a bunch of useless type of information being thrown in, and it's just like, okay, that's what it is, but at that point you're just telling me what it is. It's not something I can engage with or understand or follow along with actively. It's just something that's being told to me.
Wood, and she gives us some items from Jinshi: a sugar pearl, a leaf, a mangosteen fruit, and a sundial. Okay, so like I said, I have 2 accounts, and both times I played through this part of the story quest, I was left thinking, what was the point of that? We were told to go out and find what the meaning behind these items is, but in the end, we weren't even the ones to find out most of the information. The sugar pearl, Baizha finds out off screen. Sundial, Mortifi fixes it. And the leaf, Baizha and Yang Yang just tell us. 3 out of 4 things were done for us, and the 4th thing was just us going to a harbor to be told that they get imported. Okay.
This is a bad segment, a bad story segment for Wuthering Waves. It was just dumb. You could say it's filler quest, but it's main story, it's launch, and it's supposed to pertain to the main plot. It's a condition to meet one of the key characters, Jinshi. I don't think it's a filler quest. This is like canonical, and it's shit.
Apparently that was supposed to tell us how the people of Jinchou lived or something. And at the end of it all, when we asked to find out what the point of it all was, Jinshi says,
"An emergency forced me to leave, and I only had the time to prepare some tokens for you."
Translation:
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
So she had the time to get all these very specific items to give to Rover, but she didn't have the time to write a damn fucking sticky note? Come on.
It is bad. Like, this was a bad segment. I don't think anyone can disagree that this was a horrible part of 1.0 story. But I will say that this is a meta decision that Kuro Games made, and it was never going to be very good. The reason why I say that is because the closed beta test, they had a story, they had like maybe a lot of writing kind of prepared, and it didn't land well with the audience that they were trying to cater to, and so they had to scrap a lot of it. So I think everyone gives 1.0 a pass, and probably rightfully so, that it wasn't very powerful, and it has a lot of kind of holes in it, where obviously things have been like ripped out with not a lot of time to care for the damage that it would leave behind.
Come on, you just don't get it. She had to do that to test Rover. It was for Rover to discover things about himself while looking into those things.
And what he's speaking about, Ryuku, right now what he's talking about is he's talking about like Kurobots or like Wuthering Waves fans, and their kind of like obsession with defending the game and wanting to be right. Like just their obsession with, because they like the game, it extends to wanting to defend the game at its lowest points. And it starts to sound cope. It starts to sound irrational. It starts to sound fucking retarded, right? And so it is embarrassing. And it is something that I think the community kind of needs to work on. But at the same time, or like it would be to their benefit. Who cares what people do at the end of the day? But it would be to their benefit for them to work on something like that, because it starts to spin into this attitude, this feeling that they can do no wrong. And that's obviously just untrue.
Yeah, and we learned those things from books and people, not from those items themselves, did we? Sorry, but no. In the end, it was basically, you've forgotten everything, so go to the library and study up, scrub. I'll say this though, even though the actual stuff being said was kind of stupid at times, I really enjoyed listening to the story play out. There weren't many weird dead spaces between dialogues. There was a good amount of changes in camera angles, camera movement, as well as the movement and facial expressions on the characters themselves that sounded like real people actually interacting with each other, in Japanese anyway. Sorry, I'm sure she's a lovely woman and all, but can you replace her with someone that doesn't sound like she's just recently had a lobotomy? The only thing I wish I could do
dude. That's rough. I mean, you know, it's a joke.
Is put it on auto, hide the UI, and have it automatically select the dialogue options for me. Oh, on that point, stop giving us choices that aren't choices. Jesus.
I don't know why Ryuku likes this point. He likes this point a lot. It's a gacha game. It's a linear story, and the interaction is just flavor. Like, it's just flavor. It's sprinkles on top. It's not meant to trick you into thinking you actually have a decision to make. It's just sprinkles on top. It's nothing that's meaningful. It's nothing that's meant to be meaningful. It is just little flavor.
Christ. Unless it actually has some degree of effect on how the conversation plays out, literally nobody liked this shit. It doesn't make us feel like we are actually the character. It doesn't help us feel more immersed in the story. If anything, it pulls us out of the story to have to go through this unnecessary attention check. It feels like we're watching.
I don't agree with that. I think it's not like it's like super immersive. We're not talking like fucking Mass Effect or Knights of the Old Republic levels of immersiveness. No. But it does, like, you know, there is like a question that runs across a player's mind, like, how would I respond to this? And it does give them like an opportunity to kind of like self-insert and role play just a little bit, at least in their imagination. Okay, I don't agree with that point at all.
Watching a long YouTube video and I get a message asking if I'm still watching. I'm trying to watch a 10-hour loop of the burner stance here. Do you mind? Actually, no. Now that I think about it, it's even worse than that. It feels like when someone asks your opinion on what they should do, you give your opinion and they just completely ignore you. I guess I'll just go fuck myself then. This isn't a Wuthering Waves only problem either. It's something that I have always and will always rage against whenever I see it, in every game I play. Please.
Okay, then we don't, like, I think it's fair to say that it's not really a point that should be in this video. Because if it's a problem with every game, then, or at least in the space of context, the discussion that we're talking about, it doesn't really need to be a point against Wuthering Waves. And I know he's clarifying that, but then why is it in a video about why I hate Wuthering Waves? This is you just hating on this portion in pretty much every gacha game.
For the love of God, just stop it. These useless dialogue options were especially annoying later on when we meet up with Jian. He brings us into the war room to talk about strategies, or rather he just asks us what we think the strategy should be, but if we don't choose the right one, the game says,
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
Yeah.
Why were we being asked to decide the strategy in the first place? You're the general here.
True. It was dumb. But again, 1.0's story is just bad. That's straight up what it is.
Jian, you decide. But anyway, putting that aside, they should just get rid of these dialogue options entirely. Oh wait, no, actually, better yet, have them actually, you know, make a difference. Imagine if we were actually...
This is a bad nitpick. This is a bad nitpick. Like, you're not gonna get that. You're never gonna get that, ever. Like, you're playing a gacha game. It is a continuous release. It is update cycle. It is a continuous story. It has to be linear. There is no choices matter gacha game. It's just not gonna fucking happen. Any kind of choices matter in these type of games are always gonna be cosmetic because you are on an update cycle, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. But it's so much crazier if you have development focused on making story for this branch, that branch, that branch, that branch, and it just quickly becomes a mess. It has to be linear. There's no choices matter. It'll never happen with this medium, with this genre, and it does define the limits, the bounds, the lines of which this game and games of similar genre can be in. It absolutely does.
Actually able to decide which forces went where. This could have been a great chance to keep the game easy for the casual players, but make it more difficult for the ones who want a challenge. Each dialogue option could have a little...
That's fair. Like, you could have had a slightly different combat segment depending on the choices that you inputted, but it all has to come back to the original main branch because that's just what it is. Anytime they deviate from the main branch, it has to come back to the main branch very fast. Otherwise, you definitely can't leave it open-ended.
note next to it saying simple, moderate, and tricky for the player to understand what they were choosing. And after that, the route, monsters, and difficulty changes depending on that choice. Why
That's
could
fair.
we have done that? We're ending at the same place anyway. This was one
Sure.
of the main criticisms from CBT to official release, wasn't it? The casuals wanted things
I don't know about that.
to be easier and simpler,
Maybe.
and the hardcore players wanted things to be more difficult and complex. Why not turn something that everybody hates into something that everybody loves? Make these the points in the story where the player can choose what level of difficulty they want to try. So a casual player can stick with the easy mode or try the intermediate or hard levels every now and then, and
That is something that is a solution that doesn't sound too bad, and it doesn't sound like egregious in terms of like asking so much from the devs either. Like these it's such a small example too, and I don't know how applicable it is to a lot of other situations, but I get what he's saying. For these small sort of choices, they could work, but it's just it feels also like I don't know how much that would really improve the quality of the game, but
the hardcore players could get the difficulty they want, but make it easier if they're not in the mood that day or something. You don't need to turn it into a Telltales game. That's not what I'm asking for. Have your
Okay.
main plot points, but in certain sections have detours for the players
There
to
you
choose
go.
their level of
yep, that's exactly what I was like trying to demonstrate here.
difficulty.
It comes back to the main.
Sure, everyone winds up at the same place in the end, so it doesn't really change anything as a whole. Choose their
Wait,
level
what?
of
Moderate, tricky? Okay.
difficulty. Sure, everyone winds up at the same place in the end, so it doesn't really change anything as a whole, but
Yeah.
allowing players to choose their own experience at least lets us feel like we're making a difference. Doing something like this could satisfy players of all difficulties, easily. After deciding the battle
I feel like, is it going to be better? Yeah. Is it going to be better by a significant degree? I don't really think so. It's cool. And so, like, I think that's something that every developer has to, like, weigh in their minds. Like, yeah, we could put a little more time here to developing, like, a detour from the branch to, you know, have that next level of immersion. But what is the payoff when everything is kind of linear anyway? I feel like it's something they always have to weigh in as to, like, hey, is this actually something that adds on to the brand or value of our game in a significant degree? And I think the answer here is not really.
plans, we meet up with the other characters to storm into battle. Verena, Chishia, there's us, the rover. Tauchi, we just met her. Yang Yang, Ling Yang is in the corner there. Who the fuck is this dude? I know it's Yuan Wu,
True.
the guy who looks like the last boss of both Discord mods and Redditors. But we have never seen this guy in the story or even in the side stories
Nope.
like Ling Yang. Why the hell is he showing up for this Avengers Assemble moment? I feel
True.
bad for the voice actor. He gets brought in for literally one line and then never used again.
I will keep everyone safe.
Even now, up through 1.4, we still have no idea who this guy is, what he does, or anything of the like. Well, I guess one line is better than nothing, I guess. Carpaccio and Danjin are still nowhere to be found at all. And why are you
True.
bringing out some random painter girl who has nothing to do with anything, give her her own full story quest, but still not mention anything about the characters you already have? What are you doing? And this leads into one of my biggest fears.
It sucks. And I mean, like, if we're going to compare it directly to its competition, it's different, right? Zenless Zone Zero involves pretty much everyone inside of the main plot. You can argue to what degree are they involved, but they are involved. And, but that said, like, no, okay, it is a minus for Wua. Sure. It is not as good. I don't think it's anything I could really attack or blame them for. But if we were to compare ZZZ and Wua, I would say, like, yeah, we do have that, I guess. I don't know.
Fears about the game. I'm afraid that they're going to forget about their older characters, except for a few notable exceptions. I get that the business model of a gacha game is to push new characters to sell to players consistently, but the benefit of that is being able to use these characters to interact with each other to flesh out the story and make everything feel cohesive and real. So bringing out all these new characters is great and all, but if you're not using them and just having us talk to random NPC number 342, it feels like a massive waste. I actually thought we were going to go to the new Federation next. Maybe then they could have used that as an excuse to bring Calculator into the story, but no, we're going to Renacita with a whole slew of new characters for the story to focus around. Don't get me wrong, they look cool.
Yeah.
But this is only further feeding my worries about the older characters being forgotten about. But I'll get more into my worries about Renacita later.
Honestly, I think Wuthering Waves needs to forget about 1.0. I don't agree that they need to, like, go back for Calcharo or Danjin. Just start fresh. Go forward. Move forward into something that is more fleshed out, that has more development. Forget about trying to tie these no-name characters in at this point. It doesn't matter. Like, they're abandoned. They're gone. Just move on. And that's my biggest hope with Rinasita. My biggest hope is that Kuro Games doesn't like try and bring all these things from their baggage of 1.0 into 2.0. That's the worst thing that it can do.
Since 1.0, the quests have been getting considerably better in my opinion. Definitely not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are significant pacing issues and missed story beats. I could make full-on videos breaking down what these two particular quests got wrong, but on the whole, they are a lot better. Now, I'll be honest, I don't usually enjoy character story quests, but Jian's story was incredible. Sure, it started off
I heard this was pretty good.
a little rocky with some Gulpuff racing game that no one cared about, but once it kicked in after going through the Sonorosphere, I loved every moment of it. Going through the past, learning what happened, fighting through the trauma, and then the great boss battle with the fantastic visuals in the final cinematic, absolute cinema. Yinlin's story quest was fine, not the best, but I didn't hate it. I wish we could have gotten more of the secret agent
Encores was good. He had this little blip on the top left that said Encores was bad. He's wrong, objectively. Objectively speaking.
aspect of her character that was promised instead of this story about a girl with adoptive father issues. But still, she's hot, so would. What I really like about these character story quests isn't just the quest itself, but rather the locations we visit during them. Have you seen these places? These set designs are stunning. It's a shame we can only ever visit them during these one-time only character story quests. What a waste. Why can't we revisit these locations? Better yet, give us the option to replay these quests. How about in this section in the gallery, you add...
True, they should do that, but I think with Kuro Games, the problem is what is important and what should they prioritize. At a certain point, they cannot do everything. And it's just going to be a little easier for them to focus on the future of the game and move the game towards that direction and have all their efforts into doing that rather than providing, I guess, hooks, points for them to like jump back into the story and, you know, ensuring that these things work and continue to work as updates like go by. I don't know.
Add a couple of little replay buttons in the corner. One to replay the cutscene by itself, and
like you guys could say, right? Someone watching this video could say like, "Oh, well, I mean, it sounds easy. Just let them replay it, forehead," right? Okay, well, if it was so easy, the question has to be, well, then why haven't they done it? I think you have to give the developers a little bit of benefit of the doubt that these things do require a lot of development, a lot of time, a lot of testing in order for these things to actually work and not introduce bugs, defects, or maybe an enormous file size into the game. I think you have to give them that sort of credit and not assume that they're a team of fucking retards when they're making millions of dollars. I don't know billions, but millions of dollars. I don't think it's fair to just say like, oh, they need, like, if it was so easy, then I think they would have done it.
And another to replay the mission, which could open up a Sonorosphere to travel through to re-experience everything with your current party. They can't do that, it would take too much storage! It's already on your device anyway, whether you revisit it or not, so why not just give us the option to do it? And if storage really is a worry for you, how about this? Give us the option to delete and reinstall past mission voice lines and data to save space. You can do it for the voice packs in general, so surely you can do it for this too. Another thing I have a problem with. How in the hell can a game that has its main theme be about sound have that be one of its most lacking features? There have been a plethora of sound and music related bugs and oversights.
That's a bit of a I would just categorize as a joke. Like the theme of the story being around sounds has nothing to do with managing sound data. No. It's like true, but no, not really.
Oversights since launch. Even now when I'm fighting through a tacit field, each time I clear a wave, the battle music restarts from the very beginning. You don't notice it much when your characters aren't leveled, but once you've got a relatively decent Zhang Li Yao and he's digitally shredding through all the mobs, you hear the same 10 seconds of battle music over and over again. And that's not just for the tacit fields either. In the overworld, mobs die so easily, I never get past the initial build-up, if there even is one. Sorry guys, but the battle music for the central plains just isn't good. Especially when it's one of the largest areas in-game. We tend to hear how not good it is all too often. The other overworld battle music is better, yes, but it takes far too long to get to the good part, and by then everything is already dead anyway. The battle music for the bosses are pretty good though, for the most part. But I have a quick question. Why did you nerf your already great songs from CBT? For example, the Impermanence Heron had one of the best boss battle tracks in the game, and I was really looking forward to experiencing it for myself. How shocked was I to find out that not only did they...
I mean, like, it's not weird to say that the music is bad or sucks, but to use the justification that Wuwa is like they have so much music and sound themes in their story, and to say like, oh, it's ironic, it's like, let's just ignore that part and just say, okay, yeah, maybe the music is not that good. That's it.
They changed it from the Heron to one of the worst overall bosses in the game, but not only that, they completely nerfed the song. What do you mean nerf the song? How do you do that? Here, listen to this.
Okay. I would say this probably doesn't fit the theme that they're trying to do. And maybe they turned it to be a little more dramatic instead of just like a bop. But okay.
The one that we have now
I mean, like, there is like a filter to it, but I think that's like, I don't think that's objectively bad.
just feels incomplete, like it's missing a piece of the puzzle. Like peanut butter without jelly, yin without yang, KFC without gravy. What do you mean they don't have gravy in Japan? I'm British, I need my chicken covered in brown, salty slop, goddammit! Wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the song we have now is a massive downgrade compared to the version that we already had. So I am quite literally saying,
The first draft was better.
I know what happened though. They got feedback saying that the players wanted the combat effects to sound punchier, and they did in fact do that. But the problem was that they could only improve it so much. So what they also did was bring down the impact of a lot of the music to make that difference more distinct. And this all
Okay, I see. Basically, they brought it, yeah, okay, have less of a fuller sound, and make the sound effects so that they're able to kind of like stand out a little more instead of getting drowned out by the music, right? But I agree with that decision. But okay, let's see what he says.
all connects back with what I was saying earlier about the other characters and locations not being used. Kuro, you spend all that time designing these great characters, great locations, and great music, but do absolutely nothing with them. From a business perspective, you're basically wasting resources right now. The way to fix these particular issues is give these characters actually some attention, first of all. Let us replay cutscenes and quests, and add a damn CD player with a library of all the music we have unlocked so far. Then we, the players, can choose what we want to listen to in the overworld. Just so we're clear though, I don't think the CD player should be usable.
I don't know. And like, I guess this is something that goes back to even like the anime gacha game discussion. Like, I just feel like if it was that easy, they would have done it. And the reason why you don't see like, I guess this or that, it feels like it's because all their attention is focused, and it has to focus on the future, on keeping and maintaining the update cycle. And it just doesn't, like, I feel like gamers are in the right to ask for these companies to dip a little bit more into their margins and give back to the player base. That's fine. But you have to back that up with, you know, threats of not wanting what they're putting out either. Like, if they are putting these things out and it's successful, it's a hit, they're buying it, then you only reinforce what they're doing. And what they have to focus on is maintaining the update cycle
During story or character quests, because the music is a very important part of the storytelling experience. But in the overworld though, if I want to listen to Crownless's insane guitar riff while zipping around Jinzhou, that's my business. Yes, I know it would take away some of the audio character from the locations, but you know what you can do then? Turn the CD player off, maybe? Now it's time to address the elephant in the room. Gathering wives. Okay, so
This is probably where I would agree with Ryuku a lot. I talk with Ryuku a lot offline, and I feel like these are probably very similar to my viewpoints.
So where do I stand on this? Honestly, I'm not a fan. Now, before you come at me with your
Sure.
pitchforks, just hear me out. What I mean is that I already have dozens of other random gacha games with generic cookie cutter OP protagonists that the entire world revolves around and are loved by his harem of beautiful
Oh my
waifus
God.
of varying styles and massive personalities. I don't need another. Right now, I think there are 3 different groups out there. Some people see the harem and like it, some people see the harem and don't like it, and there's another smaller group of people that don't see the harem at all. They have some reason or other for each character. Yang Yang, she's just really caring. She cares for everyone like that. Yinlin,
Love the lap pillow.
she's just a seductress using her looks to get what she wants. Chang Li, she's heard so much about Rover from her master, so to her, it's like meeting a superhero. Shorekeeper, she's just very devoted to the cause. She respects Rover like a father figure.
Every time people want to bring up like, oh, Shorekeeper just looks at him or Rover like a father or parental figure. I just, God, where does anyone? Okay, does anyone have the tweet, the voice line of Shorekeeper, just like, just like head over heels for Rover? That one tweet where they were going over the voice lines, and everyone really liked it too. And it was just like canonical, like, oh my God, she loves Rover. You know, it's not platonic, not in the slightest bit.
Camellia, she's just interested in Rover because he's strong, nothing more. And the fact of the matter is that these people would be right in thinking that way. Those are all valid interpretations of the characters. However, for those out there that see it as something more or want to see it as something more, there are things in-game which validate their belief that these characters are romantically interested in Rover. Personally, I'm in the see the harem and don't particularly like it category. Sorry, it's just the way I feel. We don't need to have every girl we meet be almost instantly wanting to jump on Rover's tacitite dick as soon as they meet him. On top of that, there's been a significant lack of new male playable characters since launch. And that isn't a problem in itself. If a game marketed its...
But why I'm so hopeful about Renacita and why Renacita is like positive to me, or like why I'm like, oh, seems like they do have like some sort of vision, is because Renacita is kind of pushed forward with at least one male character who I think is, you know, looks pretty good.
Itself as primarily having female characters, you would sound like an idiot for asking for more male characters. You don't play Love and Deep Space and complain about the lack of female characters, do you? No, that would sound weird. The problem is though, in 1.0 there were 6 guys and 10 girls to choose from. That's a ratio of 3 to 5. Not equal, but understandable. So many of us were under the assumption that they were going to roughly keep that ratio going forward. They even showed us characters that have a lot of players eager to play them, such as Zippercrotch Boy and Mr. Anal Bead Necklace. Since then, we've had Jinshi, Changli, Jeja, Zhang Liao, Shorekeeper, Yohu, Camellia, and now Lumi is coming up.
Like
so
9 to 1.
New characters, only one of them is a guy, and he was free. And on top of that, the animations are getting wilder and wilder. How in the hell does Little Miss Itty Bitty Titty Committee over here have more jiggle physics than Changli or Baija? Robin, what do you think?
You grab a man's balls, his heart will follow.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I don't want it in Wuthering Waves. But that's just the way it is in gacha. Yes, I know, I don't care. Gacha has always had fan service like this. Yes, I know, I don't care. Gacha OPs are always loved by the main cast. Yes, I know, I don't care.
I mean, like, I feel like ever since Genshin, or I guess Genshin and Zenless is just like examples against it. And even Honkai Star Rail, I don't think Trailblazer is... There's not that much of a perspective from Trailblazer. Like, Trailblazer definitely saves the day at the end of the day, but there's not that much of a perspective from them as a contributor to the story.
So what you're saying is...
You a tourist? You a tourist?
Yep. No, I've been playing gacha games since they first became mainstream here in Japan. I'm talking about Puzzles and Dragons and Monster Strike. You know, the gacha games that actually had a gachapon animation that actually defined the genre. I also have 2,000 login days on Fate Grand Order. Yes, I know I have a problem. Someone please send help, I need it. Please. What I'm saying is, gacha is a monetization system. That's how these games make money. Gacha has absolutely nothing to do with the amount or level of fan service. Even modern titles like Cookie Run Kingdom are gacha games. No fan service there, unless you're jerking off to Blue Slushy.
It's... Listen, I would. Anyway, no, it doesn't. But positioning yourself as like a Genshin Killer or like Genshin adjacent game inherently means that you're targeting a very similar market demographic, or target demographic to market to and present itself, and like it's the context that you apply yourselves in, right? So Wuthering Waves always had that, always positioned itself as something you would compare to Genshin Impact and have over, right? Have over it in terms of the features and what their focus is. So I don't think it's the comparisons are warranted. Like, I don't know. It's just they do fit. There are boundaries to this box that they put themselves in.
In which case, seek help. Also, would. I'm kidding. I'm not saying I don't like fan service, I just don't want it in this game. At least not this much anyway. Just because I enjoy spring onion in my ramen doesn't mean I want it piled on. Why are all my analogies about food? Am I hungry? We have enough of these Guna gacha games already. I should know. Those games market themselves as being horny jiggle games meant to be played with one hand. And when I want to play one of those games, I'll go do that. Again, it goes back to marketing and how they present themselves. Any new player might see an ad for Wuthering Waves and think, oh, that looks like a cool combat game. Let's check it out. And then when they play it, they have a harem of walking jiggle physics around at all times, a lot of regular players might get turned off by that, and I don't want that to happen. There are a lot of characters in Wuthering Waves that I think are hot as fuck, but if I wanted to imagine myself giving them crazy backshots, I would just check out Pixiv. And no, I am not advocating for censorship. All I'm saying is that if they and we, the players, want Wuthering Waves to break into the normie barrier, I don't think that many regular people would be comfortable with that level of fan service. So
Okay, so this is the normie barrier, right? Let me think about this. I think Wuthering Waves definitely compares itself and sets itself to be compared by Genshin. But I think from the onset, Wuthering Waves was meant to target a sweatier, try-hard, more hardcore portion of the Genshin community, a more niche part of that community. And they were always trying to cater towards that and sort of highlight that as the slice of the pie that they were trying to go for. And I don't think inherently what that means is that Wuthering Waves just will never break that barrier while it is doing that. Right? It'll just, but I don't think that's what they're set out to do. I feel like Wuthering Waves sets out to do things different, but in comparison and in the context of Genshin Impact, and cater to that demographic, cater to that fan base. And those people wanted a main character to be more pivotal, to be more responsible for the story as a whole. And I think that's fine. And I think it's totally fine to cater to them. There are probably a lot of better ways to do it, but I don't think it's a bad decision inherently. That's what I think.
Speaking as someone that wants as many people to play this game as possible, I think they should tone things down because it just might be too much for most people.
I don't think that the players of Wuthering Waves should bother with or try advocating for Wuthering Waves to penetrate the mainstream or become mainstream. I think they should ask Kuro Games and Wuthering Waves to make a game that is for them, and it is the developer's sort of discretion to figure out how they can balance their want to penetrate the mainstream space on their own, I guess. It's up to the devs. That's how I see it. And so this point is just going to fall on deaf ears because it's speaking from a more developer point of view as opposed to a player point of view. The players are always going to advocate for more of what they received because that's what they liked.
Kuro Games really wants to go down this way with how they design their characters. That's perfectly fine by me. But to be honest, I don't think they do. Looking at the designs of the initial characters and the story and direction they had in CPT-1, yes, the characters were badass and hot with some fanservice jiggle physics, but I think that they also wanted to take this game seriously and not just push out a game for horny players to goon over. Just my opinion though. To be honest,
yeah, there is like a certain different level of sort of lewdness that they are willing to do. And definitely has to do with like who are they catering towards, right? And they want to leave it open. They want to leave it open to make the more mainstream push for sure, and I think that's fine. I don't think they've overstepped that much, but it is like, yeah, for sure, it's like something I don't really care for, and I'll criticize and make fun of, but I don't think it's like that bad. For these type of live service games that have update cycles, I don't necessarily think that's true. It's your biggest bet. It's your biggest bet, 100%. But I don't think everything is sort of written in stone. I think they can move in directions. That's kind of the benefit of a live service game, and having these kind of relaunch pivots like 1.4 for Zenless Zone Zero and now 2.0 for Arena Sita, right? I don't think it's I think they can definitely like change direction or move and pivot into different ways. Maybe not a 180-degree turn, obviously, but they can move, they can maneuver.
I prefer the dynamic in CPT-1 where Rover wasn't trusted. Think about it. What's more satisfying? Have the characters love you right away, or have them be wary of you, or even hate you, and you slowly win them over to your side through your actions in the story. ReZero is a great example of that. When we start off, Subaru is a whiny little bitch that isn't trusted by anyone, so he needs to grow as a person, and in doing so, he wins over many people to his side, including us, the viewers. Let alone Rem, who is now his biggest simp, and let me remind you, she was literally murdering him every single night when they first met.
Yep.
Murder! They could have used that trust as a vehicle to create more stories and quests in-game. Rover goes on certain quests to do certain things, and in doing so, slowly earns the respect and even admiration of everyone around him. And
I do think that there are definitely a lot better ways to write a self-insert story. I'm not saying or advocating that they should copy ReZero or even follow that sort of guideline, but there are better ways to write a self-insert main character story. And it is probably not lazy, but it's just like, for me anyway, it's cheesy and corny, but for maybe their target demographic, and it seems like that's the case, they think it's pretty lit.
Interactions with the characters in the world changes as your reputation increases. This could have helped the world feel much more alive and real, no? But no, we went from this to this instead.
You got any other tricks up your sleeve? Like eating a whole tacit Discord?
I heard the reason for this was because the scene community didn't like seeing their OP self-insert being disrespected. Is it true? Don't know. Don't care. My issue is actually with the gacha community and what they've been telling Kuro games. Mixed messages. You can't say that you want Wuthering Waves to be the Genshin Killer by breaking the normie barrier while also continuously asking for things that would turn off that normie base.
I don't think... Are they really asking for that? I don't think the players of Wuthering Waves are advocating for Wuthering Waves to be normalized or to be the Genshin Killer. I feel like the player base kind of like takes like almost a dead opposite sort of approach, in that they want their game to stop being compared to Genshin when it can't. It literally can never be stopped being compared to Genshin because it borrows a lot of its conventions. But they would rather it not live under its shadow, right? And so I don't think they're advocating for it to push and make concessions or make changes to penetrate the normie space. I feel like they just want the game to be, more for them. I don't really think that's the sentiment.
Of course, there's the niche crowd that...
Is it impossible for like male self-insert power fantasy to penetrate normie space? Sure, I think so.
Don't want any filthy normies to come in and take their precious waifus. Something get filtered. But I have high hopes that this game would be the first game that breaks the mold and becomes the first gacha to actually take itself seriously. Like how The Dark Knight is a fantastic movie often cited as a great inspiration to many big names in the industry, with Steven Spielberg saying it's deserved the nomination for Best Picture. Until then, comic book movies were ridiculed as a genre with flop after flop at the box office. Sure, there was a hit every now and then, but they were very much comic book movies. Because at the end of the day, it is an adaptation of a comic book character that looks kinda goofy when you boil it down. I mean,
I think these are pretty lofty expectations to put onto Wuthering Waves, though. I feel like it's pretty unfair. Like, if that wasn't their main goal, and like, I feel like these are really, like, you bring in the Dark Knight sort of comparison and expectation, then you're gonna have to kind of own that, right? And I feel like that's kind of a huge, tall order. I think this is like pretty unfair.
Come on, guys. Underwear over tights? How is that not goofy? There's a reason that they haven't had that in the live-action adaptation since Adam West. And the one time they did kinda have it, it looked goofy as shit. Sorry, Batman, you know I love you. But my point is that The Dark Knight is not just a great comic book adaptation of a beloved character, but also stands on its own as a fantastic crime thriller as well. And that's what I want from Wuthering Waves too. I don't want it to follow the same old fanservice tropes that all the other gacha games have. I know—
And I think that's fair, right? I think that's a fair ask as well. And I think Ryuku is 100% fair in asking for this.
Oh, this game can be better. I want it to deliver on its promises.
I don't think it's going necessarily to that level. It is like, I feel like it's still removed from that level. And I don't think it's slipping into it either. It's more fan servicey than, say, Genshin Impact, right? Sure. But it's not like, I don't think it's going Nikkei or Snowbreak levels that, like, I know I made the joke. I definitely did make the joke. Just go full Snowbreak already. But I didn't fully believe that it was getting there. They have to still willingly, consciously push the game towards that direction. There's still quite a bit of a distance to cover in order for it to go there, I think.
Of a gritty post-apocalypse. I don't just want to be told that things were bad before. I want to feel that desperation and destruction. I want to feel the lament and watch hot, badass anime women and men while doing it. This is what we were promised Wuthering Waves would be. But instead we get this, and this.
Encore's story is good. Abby is just dumb.
This? Now, I'm not saying it has to be all dark, all gloom all the time. I get the point that you can't feel the lows without experiencing the highs, but my point is I don't think we've really experienced the lows yet. I think just by looking at the current map, you can see what I'm talking about. I took the map.
I feel like you did experience, like, the lows, so to speak, right? I don't know. It's like a lot of lows with Wuthering Waves, right? It's always the end of the world. It's always the lament. It's always something that, like, would bring the destruction of the world and mankind. So far, anyway. So I don't really know. I don't really know about that.
And divided it along the borders for each region. I then got how many pixels each area has and then calculated how much as.
Oh man, what the fuck is this? Yo. Bro counted pixels. Oh shit.
The percentage those regions are of the map in total. These numbers aren't completely perfect as there are some areas underground, etc., but I think they're a decent representation. Currently, we have two distinct regions which really lean into the cataclysmic post-apocalyptic vibes we were promised, Northfall Barrens and the port city of Guizhou, but in total they add up to just less than 30% of the explorable area as a whole. And this area is supposed to be the frontier standing guard against the looming tacit discord crisis. Jinzhou is also the most recently established city too, so we can reasonably assume that all the other areas in this world are bigger, more fortified, and therefore even more peaceful than this, right? Just our first glimpse at Renacita and it already has everyone calling it Fontaine. It's bright, vibrant, colourful, peaceful, and even has tacit discords that don't seem to be a threat. If I wanted to play Genshin, I'd go and play. Well, I'd never really want to play Genshin. Let's just get that first up. That's just first. But if I did want to play Genshin, I'd go play Genshin. I really hope this is a fake out. Like I said, I get the argument of experiencing lows to really further appreciate the highs, but personally, I think it's just a little too early for Renacita. We really should have gone to the New Federation first. Calculia is waiting for his story quest after all. But I don't know. We'll just have to find out what Renacita is actually like when it drops in January. Also, for those interested in my pull priority, Zani, Carlotta, Brandt, Phoebe, Rokia, whatever her name is. In that order. Fight me. I know they got feedback in the CBT to make the world more bright and vibrant. I get that. But I didn't want them to make it any less destroyed, you know? I want to see more ruined cityscapes, more destroyed villages, more visual storytelling to show us a world destroyed by these cataclysmic events and make them visually amazing at the same time. It has been done before, but right now there's just a bunch of open fields and clear mountains, which would be fine if they had more things to do out there, but after you've collected all the supply chests and title heritages, there's not much else left. And even when they're...
I will say, I'll agree. I feel like there is like kind of a disconnect between what you're doing and what the actual world is. And it doesn't feel very real, the sort of desolation and the world being destroyed. I feel like Renacita is a good direction because I feel like this game usually tries to take itself too seriously and it's to its detriment. And whether or not they do the fake out or whether or not they move with it, doesn't matter, or it doesn't really change too much. At the end of the day, they are like having a bright sort of atmosphere in full face view, like first and foremost in front of you, right? I feel like going way too dark is definitely a recipe for disaster, and I think what Ryuko is frustrated with is this kind of like this and that. It's like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out. It's kind of like riding this line, and his perspective is that it should just be dark. It should be desolate. Of course, he says like, oh, it should have some highs. Yes, I understand that. But that it should still be more firmly in the dark and desolate vibe, first and foremost. I just think that's not going to be good for the game, especially like if it makes implications on like open world traversal, I guess.
is stuff to do, it's really difficult to find. I mean, just look at this area. Can you see the challenge point? It's right there. Duh. Here's an idea, Kuro. On top of the obvious of adding more challenges, puzzles, quests, overworld minigames, etc., how about you make those title heritages reset every couple of weeks or something? This would keep the overworld at least looking full of things to do, and make the mobs guarding them a lot stronger too. Of course, I would love more asteroid, I mean, wouldn't we all? But I know that would actually break the game and they would make near on literally zero money. Instead, how about making these drop a bunch of materials? Bell poppies, lantern berries, whispering cores, exile rings, etc. Kind of like a smaller version of the new feature in Elusive Realm. And like I said, make the mobs harder. How about you make all the enemies of these newly reset title heritages also all be elite enemies? I think that
I don't agree with that. No, I don't agree with that. It still has to play well. It's still, and like, you don't want the open world to be that desolate. It's like, you don't want it to be that threatening. It's a mobile gacha game. It's not going to be a gritty Dark Souls, like, no, I don't think that, no, don't do that.
would be a really cool idea because right now everything dies within the first couple of seconds anyway.
That's
Actually
fine.
Make us work for those rewards to make us feel like we're in a cutthroat post-apocalypse, you know? Because right now
Oh no, I don't agree. I don't agree. It's a phone game. It's a casual game. Okay, it doesn't work on phone. It's a PC. That's fine. You're still playing a gacha collector that's meant to cater to a pretty low skill like player base. It's not the open world, the easiest, most front-facing piece of content that is going to touch the most players, your biggest audience, shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be difficult. If it's not marketed that way, if it's not created to be like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, right, which is not standard, by the way. Elden Ring's Dark Souls are not standard games, right? They sort of, why they stand out is because they choose to go down this hard road. I don't think every game needs to like kind of be that way.
Now, the only thing we have to remind is that we're in some kind of apocalypse are the tacit discords walking around. On that note, it's all well and good giving us 15 different ways to get echoes, but they're practically useless if I can't level them. Several times already, I've maxed out capacity in my inventory
I think, yeah, echo leveling sucks dick, for sure.
for these things because I have literally hundreds. I'm just sitting on them like smog thinking, nah, I can't get rid of this one. It's got the right main stat. It might give me god rolls. You don't know. No, I definitely can't get rid of that one. I have so many in my inventory, I actually think, fuck it, let's just scrap them all. But if I did that and tried to scrap even all 2,000 echoes in my inbox, I would get a grand total of jack fucking shit. Come on, man. I worked hard for these echoes. And to say that I can't use them.
I don't know how this is defensible. Anyone can defend the ecosystem. I feel like the ecosystem's ass, for sure.
For literally anything is just plain ridiculous. Allow us to use the unleveled echoes as XP fodder. Well, if your inventory is filled up, you have a management issue, don't you? No,
That is, and by the way, I don't agree necessarily that they could be XP fodder. It's just fundamentally there's something wrong with this design. I'm not responsible for finding a solution. XP fodder, I can understand why they don't do that. You can't have a gacha game where your progression is actually tied to the amount of time that you put in. It has to be time gated by virtue of it being a gacha game, right? And having these resources that you are able to pay in order to mitigate, right? Like I'm talking about the plates, right? Or Zenless Zone Zero, the battery. Because that system exists, you cannot make it where you can put unlimited time and continue to build your team in significant ways. They're never going to do that, right? But something is very, very wrong with the ecosystem. Absolutely.
I have an echo experience issue. My bag is filled primarily with echoes that I'm sitting on waiting to see if I can roll them. Currently, the only real way to get echo experience is from tacit fields. So let's take a look at that, shall we? This is how much echo experience each sealed tube gives. This is how much experience is needed to max a gold echo to level 25. This is how many sealed tubes of each type you need to do that. On your average run of a tacit field at Soul Phase 8, you get a total of 4 advanced sealed tubes and 3 premium sealed tubes, as well as about 5 new echoes.
So you need wave plates needed to max 1 gold echo is 372. So that's like 2 days worth. Well, not 2 days worth, but 2 full refreshes.
Total experience gained per run is 23,000. If you use all of your wave plates doing nothing but tacit fields, you get a total of 92,000. 92,000 is a lot less than 142,600, isn't it? The cost per wave plate is...
You need to make 5. You need to make 5 of these gold echoes.
383.3, so you would need a total of 372 waveplates to max one singular echo. With RNG being a bigger bitch than my 3rd grade math teacher, I could get no usable echoes, or all 5 could be worth saving to try and roll on. But the fact of the matter is, when you're not even earning enough experience in the tacit field to level even one echo, that's not nearly enough. And that's assuming that the subsets of the echo are good in the first place. I'm not asking for enough experience so I can keep re-rolling to get that perfect echo with the perfect substats so I can min-max it as well. No, that's not what I'm saying. I just want enough echo experience so I can level one echo with somewhat decent substats. That's why so many people are constantly in dungeons in games like WoW, Path of Exile, etc. to get drops with better stats. If anything, the absolute futility of RNG in combination with how difficult it is to level echoes up is more of a deterrent for players who just can't be bothered with that insane level of grind for such little reward anymore. And no, these kinds of artifact systems aren't a staple of gacha games. Monster Strike, Puzzle and Dragons, Fate Grand Order, Nikkei, Arknights, Path to Nowhere, even Kuro's very own Punishing Grey Raven, all of these games do not have this system. But that would break the game. You could farm infinitely. RNG is still a thing, you know. Even if I infinitely roll an echo, I could still get dogshit stats every time. And I need to get 5 of these just for one set for one character. And there are 25 characters right now. And some characters benefit from different sets with different subsets, let alone all the new characters, new echo sets to come in the future. Yeah, no, sorry, that just doesn't hold water for me as a significant argument in any game. I hate that.
I don't understand. Hold on. Like, all these games, in order to get the EXP material, you still have to spend stamina. Like, yeah, you feed the units into the other units or the weapons into the other weapons, but you still get those from stamina or gacha. Like, you don't do this from free farming. You can't do that.
This system. But that would break the game. You could farm infinitely. RNG is still a thing, you know. Even if I infinitely roll an echo, I could still get dogshit stats every time. And I need to get 5 of these just for one set for one character. And there are
I don't understand why he brought up the other games.
Characters right now, and some characters benefit from different sets with different subsets, let alone all the new characters, new echo sets to come in the future. Yeah, no, sorry, that just doesn't hold water for me as a significant argument.
I think he means the fodder, but the difference is not in the fodder. The difference is, how do you acquire the fodder? You acquire the fodder by spending stamina, by completing stages, or by spending the currency to do gacha. It is all related, tied to currency, right? You cannot have open world farming give you this because open world farming is not tied to currency.
Argument in any game. I hate the RNG system, but whatever. Just let me use these echoes for XP. They're absolutely useless right now. They're not useless. You can batch merge them for more echoes. Are you not listening to me? I don't need more fucking echoes. I need the experience to level them, goddammit. Tacit fields cost too much. Don't drop nearly enough experience.
I think the valid complaint is there are not enough Echo EXP outlets or ways to get Echo EXP. 100% that's valid. 200% this is valid. This is true. Real. But saying that they should be EXP fodder is too much. It's going way overboard. Or rather, it doesn't support what... It's never anything that they will do. In any world, will they put Echoes as, like, fodder EXP? I don't think so. I feel like the consideration, or at least the reason why they haven't done it yet, is because they don't want people to endlessly farm or be incentivized to do that. They can't.
Experience and oh look, more echoes I can't level. Christ. Okay, now this is criticism not for the game itself, but more for Kuro Games.
But for sure, they could get more ways to farm Echo EXP
as a developer. Okay, Kuro. What the hell are you doing? You started your very first special broadcast with very blatant typos. You misspelled headphones as headphones. How do you even do that? Just writing this script, I had to force my spell check to type it wrong because it kept fixing it for me. Seriously, just put it into a Google Doc and press F7. Some of these typos were pretty funny though, I've got to admit. Cooming soon is another word for edging. Luckily, these were just little slip-ups, little whoopsies even. Nothing too severe, right? For everyone in EN, no, just mortify eating fudge, I guess. But for us in Japan, we had an absolute fiasco with the Jian weapon banner. The TLDR is, the description was wrong on what the weapon does, so many people who spent money to pull for it felt ripped off. The backlash was so bad, it almost killed Wuthering Waves over here in Japan. And here's what happened. The translation for this weapon was wrong. JP got angry. They said they'd refund everyone for the pulls. JP was happy. They leaked the email addresses of everyone who applied for the refund. JP got angry again. They then gave 10,000 yen as compensation. JP was happy. They then didn't refund the pulls and said go talk to your credit card company. JP got angry. Again, all in the space of just a few days. From the outside, I felt like I was watching Sideshow Bob step on the rakes. Anyway, my point is that these little things were still big enough to drive away many new interested players who now might not even give it another shot for years to come. I mean, come. Damn it, typo. But having said all
this whole point about typos and like whatever, it is silly, but for sure, this is a real problem. This problem is very real, and I get that he's trying to say like it leads into this, but yeah, the localization was definitely an issue with Wuthering Waves. They understand that, and this is like the most horrendous scenario event you can have from bad localization. But I don't think like misspelling headphones is like that crazy.
this, does that mean I hate Wuthering Waves? No, I never said it was a perfect game, but there's a lot of stuff I don't like. I think the length of this video is enough evidence to prove that. But in the end, I still really enjoy it. The combat is fun, the characters look great, the story isn't the strongest, but they tell it in an interesting way, and this is enough for me. For now, anyway. To me, Wuthering Waves is like my favorite cousin. I love it when they come over to visit, but I just wish they would stop picking their nose at the fucking dinner table. Bobby, I love you, man, but you are 2 knuckles deep into your own nasal cavity right now. Are you trying to give yourself a lobotomy? Are you auditioning to be the next Yang Yang? That being said, these aren't all the things I hate about Wuthering Waves. I could go longer into my particular issues with the Showkeeper story and the Camellia story, but I think this video has gone on long enough as it is.
True.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But if you do want to hear more about what I think about those particular stories on their own, then feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because that greatly supports the channel. And yes, I do also look forward to seeing all your hate comments. So until next time, I will see you in the next video. Peace.
I feel like Ryuka had some very good points. A lot of it is kind of supported or backed up by very nitpicky portions. And I feel like this will make and weaken his argument, right? I think it'll weaken what he is trying to say. And it leaves him open to critique on these things. So like, there are a lot of fair points in here, absolutely. But some of the supporting evidence or things that he's using to support it are things that the community is going to over scrutinize and attack him for. And if it's in the video, I don't think they're wrong for it either, I guess. You know? Or like, it's not that they're wrong for it, it's like I wouldn't blame them, you know? But yeah, there's just a lot of weird little nitpicks, like the typo. I don't know this example with the other gacha mobile games. Like all these things, you need to spend battery or energy to acquire the EXP fodder. Like the difference is not in the fact that there's fodder or not. The difference is how you obtain the fodder. And if you make it so that you can obtain EXP fodder from unlimited just time input grinds, it's just not something I can understand why they wouldn't do that. It's a tall ask. The Dark Knight thing, it's a tough one to bring up. I feel like this level of expectation is that level. I know Ryuku is not saying like, oh my god, Wuthering Waves should have been the Dark Knights of gacha games. I know he's not saying that, but it's like, then why is it in the video? And it's like so hard to not, I don't know. If you bring it in as a comparison, as an example, then people are going to think that you think that, right? It's hard. And so like the question is, why bring it up, I guess. Just say you expected more. I don't want to say just say you expected more. I don't know. Just the example is hard. It's hard to use something like that. It is hard to use that as an example, right? Besides that, the soundtrack, I think it was fine. It's okay. I agree with their decision. They don't want it to drown out the noises of combat. I think that's fine. That's not objectively bad. These are nitpick. I mean, like this is his opinion piece of why he hates it. But I think this is totally like, if we're trying to say, I'm not saying Ryuku is right or wrong. I'm asking the question, are his points agreeable? And I feel like this is hard to agree with. It's hard to agree that like this was a bad change. Besides that, it's like, would it make it better? Sure, objectively, yes. But how much time would they have to spend to make something like that and put it in and make sure the tests, like, there's no bugs introduced, right? And would it make that much of a difference? I feel like it's not really. Like, it'll be cool, and they might even have it for Renacita, but I'm not gonna like say like, oh, that's a crazy good gameplay feature that they added, right? Or like that's why my gacha game is so good. The Jinshi story segment, yeah, it definitely sucks, but I feel like everyone gives 1.0 a pass because again, it's left a lot of holes because they scrapped out a lot of things, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's I haven't watched Ryuku's Honkai video, so I can't really base it off anything, but this feels like there are some nitpicks and there are a lot of like not very good examples to compare it to that undermines his points that are completely valid, but I think it works against him. That's how I feel. Oh.